Greetings and welcome to video number 18 of the Greater Reality Healing Program. I'm Dr. Mark Pitstick. To learn about my training, experience, and outreaches, please visit soulproof.com/about. Please watch previous videos before this one if you haven't, and articles mentioned in this video are free at soulproof.com/articles. This is the last video in this series, Greater Reality Healing, and key number 17 to journeying from deeply grieving to brightly shining is in how to enjoy relationships with your departed loved ones now. As we've discussed, when a loved one passes on, that's one of the toughest changes. And that's what it really is, a change. It's not a loss. Life and love cannot be lost, but it is a change. And so it's immensely healing when you can develop a different relationship with your loved ones and especially perceive signs from them, visits from them, sense their living reality in some way. And so that's what we'll be talking about in this key. So by now, if you've been following along, you know very well your loved ones who graduated from Earth School didn't really die. Only their no longer needed birth suits did. And the grand scheme of things, this body, are as inconsequential as a childhood coat. What's more, you know that your post-material loved ones aren't a zillion, quadrillion miles away in the sky somewhere. Again, those are erroneous teachings from that era, aptly called the Dark Ages. In fact, your dear ones are very near, quite likely, especially if you're feeling them. Their life force is at a different frequency right now. And that's why many people can't see them, although evidential mediums can sense them. More and more people are being able to detect their presence via signs and visits. And we now have technology that picks up, measures, demonstrates their presence. So to review this one a bit, while on Earth, your loved one's energy had to operate at lower and slower vibrations. That's what it takes to pretend you're physical. I mean, you're not really a physical being, but to make it look like you're physical and thereby set the stage for the opportunity for all this growth, adventure, learning, etc. Their energy slows down, and that's why it appears that they're solid. Again, that allowed them to benefit from the illusion that they were solid, separate, and would die. And although none of those are true, believing them is a potent wake-up call. It gives you something to build spiritual muscles about and realize you're not just solid, although we can say, okay, we appear to be solid in this space-time slice of life. We're not separate from each other or our source, and we don't die. But it's one thing to hear that, read it. It's another thing to know it in the depth of your being. And that's partly why souls will choose to experience all those things so that they can work through it and then know without a doubt, deeply internalize. And then that's when you really own it and can share it with others who don't quite get it yet. So benefits of going through that, temporarily believing these falsehoods cause them to struggle, suffer, search. And that in turn triggers opportunities to search for evidence-based answers, to learn meaningful answers, sensible answers, instead of the baloney that often passes as religious teachings. I'll say often, sometimes. So again, these illusions that you're solid, separate, and can die also give you a chance to listen to and trust your inner wisdom more, the part that understands the big picture of life. And what a huge lesson that is. Once you develop it, then that's a eternal benefit. You take that with you wherever you go. trusting your inner knowing and that from your relationship with the Creator. So again, pretending for just a while, a blink of an eye, to be just human can also launch adventures, enjoyment, and service to others. Now I say can because it's a choice, isn't it? You know, it's up to you. And in this program, you're getting everything you need to make a wise, informed choice, to know how to do it and the resources. So you can awaken to that great news and know that you're an adventurer, a hero, a heroine, and rise to the occasion no matter what happens, even the moment before passing. Or you can spend the remainder of your years on earth seeking pity, feeling like a helpless victim, you know, making people feel guilty if they don't help, being an energy vampire, sucking energy, sapping, zapping. So hopefully you're not doing that. By the way, I mentioned making a higher choice. Two stories which really energized me. Albert Einstein had a leaking aortic aneurysm. At that time, there was no surgery for that. Surgery was pretty much certain death. So it was a slow leak, and he knew he was bleeding to death within. Even so, he spent his final hours writing letters, teaching others, putting together his notes for his research so others could follow up. Wow, that's what I call strong. You know, he wasn't going, oh, I'm dying. He was doing his life work. Same way with Walt Disney. A reporter had been trying to land an interview with him, with Walt, for a long time. Finally was granted. But Walt was so ill, he couldn't even sit up from his hospital bed. And he said, here, and Walt scooted over a little and said, here, lay beside me. I want to show you something on the ceiling. And there were the plans for the Epcot Center that Walt was working on as he was literally dying, you know, his final hours, and summing up details to pass to the architects and so on. So that's how it can be. You know, you can be on your mission, know who you are, and not fear death. So after your loved ones drop their limiting earthly bodies, the part of their consciousness manifesting this earthly experience was freed up. Then their energy, that part of their energy that was energizing this earthly experience, became more expansive and operated at higher and faster levels. Now again, some people can't detect those finer frequencies yet, so they falsely conclude that their loved ones are gone. Fortunately, there are some ways, some practical ways that you can detect your loved ones and get better at it and increase the chances of having a visit. Now, Dr. Eben Alexander and I, he's a Harvard neurosurgeon, wrote the book Proof of Heaven. We had dinner and both agreed that about 90% of what the brain does is inhibit sensory input, because you understand that the air is filled with radio waves and electromagnetic frequencies and all these colors and sounds. And that's one of the reasons why people take, quote, mind-expanding drugs. They say things like they can hear colors or see sounds. Well, it's because they're sensing life beyond the normal 5 senses. Now, evolutionary-wise, that was adaptive for cavemen and cave women who had to survive. They had to be able to sense saber-toothed tigers and tell which foods they could eat, which berries were poisonous, and which ones they could eat for survival. You know, every day was tough for survival. So that's one of the reasons that nature selected for the people that could focus on what was most important are the ones who lived and passed on their genes. Well, now that limited vision, you know, narrowing down what you sense, is no longer adaptive. In fact, it's maladaptive. It hurts you from understanding more about the big picture of life and why it's so important to quiet the brain and take time to sense more of what is. Humans often don't have that same sort of threat to survival, but they have other stresses which can threaten their health, and which, by the way, the more you understand about the big picture of life, remember who you are and so on, the better you can handle those stresses. That's why more and more people are spending some time, energy, and money to expand their senses, learn lessons like we've been talking about in this series, and enjoy all the benefits therein. Many people have reported spontaneous afterlife contacts. Now, I discussed these in article number 28, in which they sense, while awake or dreaming, their post-material loved ones. Now note the term first used by Bill Guggenheim, Bill and Judy Guggenheim, in their book Hello from Heaven, and others in this field, was after-death communication, ADCs. However, as we're learning more and teaching more about the nature of reality, it's so important to use the most accurate term. So the term death, for example, is a misnomer, since no one really dies. And the word death is strongly anchored to convey inaccurate connotations of an end, of a separation. I mean, many people still think that death means lights out, that's it. So that's why I propose shifting from after death to afterlife. Next, I use the term contact versus communication because not all afterlife visits involve communication per se. For example, some people report very meaningful dreams or waking experiences where they saw their loved ones had passed on. They look younger, healthier, happier, and just that eye contact or just sensing them is very restorative and meaningful, but there is no communication involved. It was a contact. Whether awake or dreaming, they weren't aware of any spoken or telepathic messages. Also, I'm always looking at a worldwide audience for this because it's time for everyone to awaken, to have this world peace, this widespread conscious living, higher conscious living. So I think that contact, quite a fewer syllables in the communication, would be more easily translatable so people worldwide can understand this better and maintain connections with their loved ones who have changed worlds. So again, it's important to use terms that convey contemporary understandings. Even that requires learning new vocabulary, and it's well worth it. So that's why I recommend the term afterlife contacts, ALC, instead of after-death communication, ADC. One of my heroes, Raymond Moody, MD, PhD, says that afterlife contacts have been experienced by about 25% of the general population, 25%, 66% of widows and widowers, and 75% of parents whose children have passed on. However, over the years, I've asked thousands and thousands of parents if they ever received one or more meaningful afterlife contacts, whether dreaming or awake, and invariably nearly every hand goes up. So I think that number is closer to 98%. Now, afterlife contacts can involve the usual senses. In other words, you can see, hear, smell a cologne, a fragrance, pipe, tobacco, etc. Or they can involve more ethereal and subtle ones. For example, getting a telepathic communication, feeling their presence, having a knowing that they're present. So whichever way these come in, that's just fine. Those who have passed on often, especially, can manipulate the functioning of electronic devices. So you may have noticed, for example, lights flickering on and off, garage door opening or closing for no apparent reason, TVs turning on and off, and so on. I've heard so many of these, and I love them. Orbs or other light showing up in photos, and yet, and that showing up also using different cameras and different films. And yet when the loved ones aren't there, everything looks normal. And by the way, the person taking the picture didn't see anything with their eyes, but the camera picked up the image. So it's really interesting stuff, and learning about it can jazz you, can help move you from the sadness and pain and hopelessness into peace, joy, etc. Many people have also reported thinking of their loved ones, and suddenly a favorite song, a song that both of them loved and was meaningful, plays on the radio. One mom described, and I forget the exact name of her kid. She had 3 kids pass on. Well, let's say it was Chris and Ryan. She was missing them, turned on the radio, and the announcer said, "This is Chris and Ryan bringing you the greatest hits." And she's like, what are the chances? So stay alert. That's the big key. If you're down in the dumps, woe is me, why God, life is no fair, then you're probably going to miss these. But if you go, I know they're alive and well, and some of the parents that I interviewed, and I mentioned these in other videos under the helpingparentsheal.org website, and at the top YouTube videos, and the very first sub-tab called Affiliate Leader and Caring Listener Interviews, and you'll see my picture. These wonderful interviews, and so many of these parents said, I made a decision. I was going to do everything I could, since I couldn't see my child physically, to feel them spiritually, energetically. Again, a decision. Again, choosing on what do you focus on. Those in spirit are very creative. They're resourceful to making their presence known. That's they're sending or transmitting their signal or their presence. But you have to be at a higher energy wavelength, or it's better to be, to receive them, to pick them up, to detect them. The Shining Light Parents Speak book, which is the best of these interviews I just mentioned, has a chapter full of signs and visits by, quote, children who change worlds. And I say, quote, children, because you realize they were just showing up as children in this earthly experience. They may well be evolved souls, our teachers, to bring in these wonderful lessons that help us wake up and remember and make our world a better place. Now, there are shared and evidential afterlife contacts that indicate these visits are not just imagination or wishful thinking. Shared ALCs mean more than one person at the same time had the same event. I've had people send me the most amazing stories. For example, one man told me their dad passed on, and the same time of night, both brothers, one who lived on the East Coast and one on the West Coast of the U.S., had a visit from their dad and were told the same message. What are you going to do with that? And there are many shared in the Guggenheim's book, Hello from Heaven, and also in my article number 28, as well as the Soul Proof book. Evidential ALCs are considered to have some sort of evidence involved. And you can learn about those from those same resources. But for example, Carl Jung, MD, the eminent psychiatrist behind Jungian therapy, a contemporary of Freud's, described one his neighbor had passed. They weren't that close, but Jung was going to bed and sensed his, quote, deceased neighbor staying at the foot of the bed. And Jung thought to himself, of course, very open-minded, but also demanding proof. He said, well, is this my imagination, or am I really sensing this person? He said, well, gain some evidence, evaluate it. So he said, okay, if this is really you, give me a sign, give me a signal. And the neighbor said, tomorrow I'll go to my house, ask my wife to let you in the library. On this shelf and this part of the library is a book by this color and with this name. And Jung hadn't been to his library that much, certainly didn't, it was big and didn't know it by heart. Went there, followed the instructions, and sure enough, there was the book. And it was about, the book was on the topic that no one really dies. So, well, what are you going to do with that? And there are all sorts of these evidential afterlife contacts. So again, see article number 28 to learn more about signs and visits, and also practical things you can do to increase the incidence and the quality of these visits. So these contacts are termed spontaneous because they occur seemingly out of the blue. People don't feel like they have any control about how and when the visits come through. But as discussed in my article number 9, that's actually not true. There are a number of true and tried ways to increase the quality and frequency of visits from your beloved post-material persons, and this can include people and pets. So until the soul phone technology provides better ways, it can be used by all people, kind of like cell phone use. There are 4 facilitated methods that could help you better detect the presence of your dear ones. First of all, my afterlife contact technique, as described in article number 9. You can have sessions with evidential mediums, and by evidential I mean clearly accurate, not fraudulent and not just mediocre, described in article number 6. Using the induced ADC technique as taught by Alan Botkin, PSYD, and the website there is induced-adc.com. And finally, mirror gazing, the psychomantium technique, as reintroduced by Dr. Raymond Moody. I say reintroduced because this approach has been used for millennia by various cultures, for example, ancient Greece. And I spent a week getting certified in this mirror gazing technique in the year 2000 from Dr. Moody. To learn more about mirror gazing, see the Gaia article. It's called Contacting the Dead Through Psychomantium Mirror Gazing. So just search for that, or there's a link in the book, an audio book. The article number 82, there's a link. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP, and instrumental transcommunication, ITC devices have provided some audio and visual contact with post-material persons. I've heard many of the audios, seen the videos. However, these approaches sometimes, perhaps often, produce audios that are unintelligible and vague images. You'll see below, they'll write out, well, what they're saying is, "I love you, mother." And well, really, to me, it sounds like, "Roar, roar, roar." So I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying this technology is not the level we want to have with the Soul Phone project. We want the sound, the visual images to be just as clear, as accurate, reliable, and so on, as we currently have with cell phones. So to learn more about the difference between EVP, ITC, and the Soul Phone project, see article number 106. Now, perceiving your post-material loved ones can be easier than you might think. For example, when I facilitate afterlife contact sessions, nearly 75% of participants report one or more meaningful experiences the first time they try that. And if you've been following all along, it may not surprise you to know that this technique involves quieting your brain so that the rest of your senses, your real self, can sense what's right there beside you, your loved one, see, hear, feel, or know. Visiting with your loved ones in the next phase of life is similar to setting up visits with earthly family and friends. Invite them on a specific date, set a time. Whether you believe in life after death or not, talk to them as if they are really present, because they probably are. Some people will set up a chair or 2 chairs close and have a cup of tea for their loved ones in the next realm. Use your imagination. What feels right? Have an object of your loved one who's passed on, because sometimes objects will retain energy, and it's easier for your post-material loved one to zoom in, hone in. Just one sign or contact from loved ones can greatly decrease your sadness and increase your certainty that they're alive and well. And after that, it can feel more like they're living across the globe, meaning you won't see them for a while, but you know you will someday. You know they're alive and well, even though you can't visit with them fully like before for a while. But with the above approaches for now and soul phone technology in the future, you can more clearly send and receive contacts, and that makes such a huge difference. So suggested action steps for this key: read article number 9 to learn practical tips for increasing the quality of relationships with your beloved family, friends, and pets. Use one or more of the 4 senses or 4 techniques I mentioned to sense them, and experience the afterlife contact technique with a small group of people and then compare notes afterwards. Some family members, for example, they'll set the intention, okay, we want to experience a visit from our loved one who had passed, and afterwards they notice a commonality of signs and what they picked up, which is part of what I mentioned, the shared aspects of these afterlife contacts. To improve contact with your loved ones, see articles number 6, Evidential Mediums, 9, Visit with your, quote, departed loved ones now, 28, Afterlife Contacts, and 106, Comparison of the Soul Phone Project and Instrumental Transcommunication. We are into the summary and resources, and this won't take very long, so I'm going to include it in this video. This program can help you journey from deep grieving to brightly shining. I encourage you to use it consistently over time. Watch these videos at least twice. Read the article twice. I've been living with this for over 50 years, so I can just talk about it all day long, but you'll need to expose yourself to it a few times so you really own it, so you really internalize it, understand it, forward and backward. And that's when you'll get the benefits, and that's when you'll be able to help other people with it. Please reach out to others for assistance and be around kindred spirits. Expand your tribe so you have others to lean on, especially when you feel like you can't go on, you can't take another step on your own. Use the information discussed in key number 17 to better sense your dear ones who are rooting you on, cheering you on. We know this from many different mediums, so that you will heal, transform, enjoy a wonderful life, help others, and make our world a better place. I will guarantee you, if you use this program, you learn the information, use some of the resources, take some of the action steps, for just 90 days, you'll notice a difference. And then you'll have more energy, clarity, less fear, more hope to make others. And then there's really no ceiling till you merge with the One, till you fully know that you are one with the One, just how wonderfully life is set up. So some evidence-based information and holistic resources to assist your journey include at my soulproofarticle.com, 122 articles now that are free. At soulproof.com, radio shows, top tab. There are 25 different radio shows you listen to where we discuss optimal living, afterlife, consciousness. Soulproof.com and soulphone.org to sign up for free monthly newsletters, and especially to get updates when the Soul Phone Project announcements and demonstrations will be held later in 2025. As mentioned throughout, my audio programs, 10 of them, and my 8 books are at soulproof.com/shop, are inexpensive. However, if you can't afford them or you can't use the order form because you're in a different country and monetary system, email me, mark@soulproof.com. We'll send you 2 at a time free digital copies. Just let us know which ones. Brian Smith's grieftogrowth.com site, and 2 is a number, grieftogrowth.com, is another excellent resource for those seeking a higher path to handling grief. Books by my beloved colleague, Dr. Gary E. Schwartz, PhD. Some are listed at the lab website, lach.arizona.edu, and all are available at amazon.com. I've read them all. They're amazing, and make sure you check those out. You can benefit from this program in 4 ways. First, read article number 82, the Greater Reality Healing Program, that I'm speaking from the notes to create these videos. That's soulproof.com, articles, and take action steps. Share and discuss this information with others to help them and help you more deeply internalize it. Second, watch these videos of me at both soulproof.com and soulphone.org. They'll be under the top tab, Greater Reality Living Programs, and then the sub-tab for this program, Greater Reality Healing Program. Third, attend online meetings, which will be meetings for the whole group and then breakout groups for more personal interactions and sharing. And we hope to get those started in late spring of 2025. I put out a word 3 days ago asking for volunteers. I have now 12 coordinators and over 50 volunteers. So we'll be moving along for that because I'm so involved in so many things and helping with the Soul Phone Project research that I need this team to make these 4 programs work. So again, sign up for the free newsletters at soulproof.com and soulphone.org to learn details of these meetings, dates, times, Zoom meeting number. They're all free. There's no registration or membership required. Again, we want to make it easy for people all around the world. And as the need presents, we'll have these at 2 different times. For example, mid-morning and evening in the Eastern time zone, so that people in different time zones around the world can attend without being up in the middle of the night. And the 4th way, attend in-person local groups when these form. This is where people can discuss the program with others, share your personal experiences, share your challenges, and consider how you can make your community a better place. Put this to work. We hope to have volunteers to start these groups. We have among our volunteers, I think now 8 different countries involved, several different languages. So this will take some time, but let us know if you want to have a meeting in your area. First, you want to attend the meetings, but if you want to start a local group. So this should take off pretty well, especially after the scientific announcements and public demonstrations that make all this more real versus, kind of like pie in the sky, wishful thinking. And finally, existing grief groups, Compassionate Friends, for example, for kids, more traditional grief groups for adults. You're welcome to use all or any part of this approach free. I'm putting it out there for people to use to handle life's biggest changes. Thank you for telling others about this program. Much more importantly, or just as importantly, using it yourself, transforming, so you're brightening the corner where you are. And that's really sufficient. That's enough to help change our world, as enough people just let their light shine, remember who they are, do what they came here to do. I look forward to seeing and hearing you at the meetings and hearing how this transformed your life and how you're making a difference in shifting our world into a more conscious, loving, harmonious place. You deserve to have the greatest life you've envisioned, and the world is just waiting for you to share your special gifts. I send you hugs, love, and blessings as you shine brightly. Let it shine. Take care.